Hello friends, I used to have crippling anxiety and depression, but over the past 3 years I've been grappling with it, and I've distilled down my experience in this video series. I hope that in this video series you find something you find useful to overcome your anxiety and depression. So please like and subscribe, and let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Positive thoughts only though, please. So, this short is about removing negative stimulus, which is much easier said than done, especially if you reach a critical tipping point like I had, where your thoughts themselves are the negative stimulus. So, disclaimer, as you're here because either you or somebody you know and care about has depression or anxiety, I'm not a doctor, this is not medical advice, please don't hurt yourself. I care about you. I'm sure lots more people than you realise do care about you, and I hope by the end of this you've picked up some techniques to know how to care about yourself and you know how valuable you actually are. So what exactly is negative stimulus? Well, it could be anything, but only you know how to recognise it when it happens to you. And it's usually pretty unrelatable, so things that bring others pleasure may very well trigger your negative thought cycle. A great example of this is there's a song by Megan Trainor, which they used to play at my gymnastics club before it got closed down. And now every time I hear it, or it just crops up in my mind, I feel overwhelmingly sad for how much I miss the old club. So after a traumatic experience, for example when my son was born very premature, we spent a long time in hospital, and there's a lot of different stimulus during that time, you may find a lot of surprising things are able to trigger you into a negative spiral. So unfortunately, you're going to have to prune a lot of things from your life and reframe others if you're serious about overcoming anxiety or depression. Now, we cover reframing in another session, which is well worth a watch, and this one's mainly about pruning negative stimulus, which is vital if you actually want to progress and move forward. So I have a pretty addictive personality, and I realised I was using alcohol to cover up a lot of my symptoms, which is a very short-term solution, equivalent to putting a sticking plaster on a broken arm. So I had to remove alcohol from my life, but alcohol is very prevalent. For example, at work, during lunchtimes, we used to go to the pub. Normal English, we're northern, it's a thing we did, and my manager really encouraged it. So I decided I had to move jobs to completely remove that negative stimulus, so I could reframe work as a positive thing as opposed to a negative thing that I need to be medicated with alcohol. So now my workplace is a dry environment, and my colleagues all know that I'm teetotal, which is fantastic. Also, because my manager was an absolute piece of shit and was gaslighting me for a long time, removing him allowed me to reframe work generally as a happy and safe place. So if this sounds familiar, maybe you need to take the plunge and leave if you're not happy and find a better job that's more suitable to your skill set, or to find a better job that's more suitable for the environment you actually want to live in and the environment you want to grow in. You know, you spend a third of your waking life at work if you do 40 hours a week. That's a long time to be miserable, and it's impossible to break that cycle if you just go to sleep, wake up, go to work, feel fucking depressed, and then have 3 or 4 hours in the evening where you're basically just prepping for work the next day, make a pack up, iron. And you just spend a few short hours with the people you love and care about, your family, your children, and then you're back at work the next day. If you're not enjoying work, it's so hard to break that cycle. And this applies to any situation really. Work, marriage, hell, even if you're friends, they may actually be the negative stimulus sucking you back into the depressive cyclone of misery. Especially if the time you spend together is just a steady stream of complaints. You know, we've all had this where it's nice to complain and get things off your chest, but if that's all you're doing and you're just dwelling on the negatives, that's not a healthy place. So next time you're with anyone you're unsure about, just listen, like seriously listen, and rate every type of conversation from everything's great, you're doing great, look at these great things, to everything sucks, the world's going to end and I hate reality. Because nearly everyone watches the same news cycle, which uses fear as a means of securing viewership. People tend to lean into the negative, fear-driven narrative. And that's part of our nature. I think it makes sense from an evolutionary perspective, but we'll get more on that in another video. But here's the thing, you'll never improve if you don't prune and reframe, because the odds are stacked against you, and they say madness is doing the same thing twice and expecting different results. So whatever it is, if it's not making you feel better, it's probably making you worse. A hot button topic right now is the impact of therapy. Now I should clarify, this is not therapy, this is just information. But a fantastic researcher called Abigail Schreier has done a lot of research on the impact of therapy, and it seems that in a lot of cases, your therapy may be making you worse. This was certainly the case for me. I was actually doing alright, and my manager suggested therapy as it helped his wife who had attempted suicide. The therapist just dredged up loads of old shit that I'd moved past, and I ended up ruminating on it for a while, which sucked, and it literally reintroduced me to that negative stimulus that I'd actually worked on moving past. So take therapy with a pinch of salt. I think a lot of the work has to come internally. You have to do it yourself and it has to come from within. I've put some links in the description so you can make your own mind up about it. but it certainly made my life worse. And if you're going into therapy, you need to have a clear idea of what you want to talk about and what outcome you want. So we've proven the negative stimulus, the people and places that were driving us into this spiral of depression, and we've got all this free time now, which we used to use to do our addictive hobbies, like drinking and such, and see our sucky friends. But what do we do with this free time? As we can't just sit with our thoughts, especially for anything like me, your thoughts tend to spiral downwards. So what I do with my free time now, whenever possible, I go run. Running is amazing for your mental health, ideally outside, but a treadmill's fine if you don't have access. Another technique I like when I start to spiral is to check my mood. So if I can't go out running for a while, I realise I get into a progressively more and more negative mindset. When I start to spiral, check my mood. But get really granular with it. Don't just go with, ooh, I'm depressed or I'm miserable or a little bit sad. You have to be really specific. And this really helps shatter the just depressed overarching mentality, because you start to realise that you're not fully depressed and there are moments of happiness in your life. And we'll talk about this in a later episode, because I think it's really important. It's one of the things that had the most impact for me. Another thing I like to do is a body scan to see any signs of discomfort, which could be contributing. For example, my back's aching slightly because I've been sitting too long at a desk. So I get up, I walk it off. Another technique, which I like to use to fill the time, is gratitude journaling, which sounds pretty soft. And it is just writing down things that you're happy about and you enjoy and make you laugh and smile. I write about my son pretty much permanently because he's the best thing in my life and the reason I'm still alive. So when I was feeling depressed at work, for example, I would sit and focus on why, and then, when possible, I'd counter it with a positive memory in a similar scenario. And it's really important to write down positives too. Not just do it as a thought experiment, but actually write it down. Write it down seems to help settle the mind. It slows the mind because you can't write as fast as you can think, so you have to slow your thinking to be at the same speed as your hand. It allows you to reflect on the positives for longer and allows you to shift your focus onto something more enriching. For example, I'm at work and I'm feeling miserable because I miss my son. I fight back the tears and try to recall one of the hundreds of fun activities we've done together recently. I quickly write down the time he was laughing so hard at me pulling faces, or the fun we had playing in the park together. It's really simple stuff, and it just distracts you and takes you away and makes you happier and breaks the depression feedback loop. And before you know it, you're excited for the next time you get to go play together. Or whatever positive thing you have in your life. If you're into fucking playing the drums, playing guitar, you do a thing that makes you really happy. You gotta focus on that. Another quick example just before we go. If you've had an arsehole in another car driving dangerously near you, or on the way to work and you're focusing on that, try to think about the time you've had fun driving and all the positive driving experiences you've had. Super easy. After a while, you've got a gratitude journal to reflect on, and hopefully you're past the hump of despair. So to summarise, removing negative stimulus can be very daunting and may require you to completely overhaul your life, but it'd be worth doing in the long run. Don't worry too much if you have the odd day when you slip. Just try not to let a bad mood grow into a bad attitude. Instead, try reframing your thoughts to a more positive outlook. And we'll be looking more in the next session on reframing, which is what that's all about. So thanks for watching.